What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the podcast. I'm here with my boy Rishy Monga. He's a junior computer science major from San Antonio, Texas. He is here to talk with us about life and everything that's going on in college, on the college scene, everything that's going good, maybe going not so good. We're here to ask the tough questions, right, Rishi?
The great questions.
The great questions.
Fantastic questions. Basically anything you could think of.
Anything you could think of, but we already planned them out. So,
right.
So there are things
That's what we're going with.
We're going to go with that.
Okay.
We definitely planned this episode out.
At least a little bit.
At least a little bit. We put bullet points down.
You know, you just gotta give yourself a little bit of layout.
Exactly. I mean, this is how we normally do it. I've never actually had them sitting in front of me the whole time. And I've never done this without the video cameras, which is kind of nice. I like this vibe.
So this is your first, in-person one.
No, I mean, I've done them in person all the time.
Oh, I thought you meant, without video cameras. Like, you did it over Skype before.
No, I've never done it ever, over Skype. I've heard people do it that way, but I usually just have one or two video cameras sitting there. Yeah. So, one's on you, one's on me.
I feel like that's just way too laggy to do.
Yeah, I don't know. The editing's fun. It's neat, but now it's just, I can focus on you and not what I might look like. I'm not picking my nose. I can pick my nose here.
Listen, we're not talking about that. We're going on to the topics.
On to topics.
That's the objective.
Not nose
of
picks.
Course. Not that.
Okay.
We're picking the correct thing today.
Right.
Right. All right.
All right. Introducing the first planned topic of the day.
Okay.
Right on. No, we're talking... Okay, you have to explain this because I still don't quite understand it. You're being a bruff. B-R-U-F.
Honestly, that's just something I thought of. It doesn't make any sense. It's just being a bro in general.
Being a bro.
But, you gotta have... I feel like... Okay, you go through every day... And you have, your course of your friends, right? You got your casual friends, and then you got your, world or school associates, just people that you meet up just to meet up at school. Literally have no intention of being friends whatsoever. And then you have, your best friends, that you call your bruffs, right?
Right.
Basically, the people that you think are cool, or, the ones that you would genuinely hang out with in your free time. Just because you genuinely enjoy their company and you like them.
Right.
As people. And I feel like... I think it's really important because, if you keep living your life in that middle area where you're always around people who are just around you just for the business aspect, for the school or work aspect, it kind of gets to your head, and you're like,
they're just using you, bro.
Kind of using you. Maybe it's just the fact that you're not having a genuine friend. Maybe it's just that you're so much around a superficial lifestyle that you're not actually enjoying what you're doing.
Yeah.
And I feel like that because if you go to college, right, and you're a college student and you're around that all the time, it's not good for your mentality.
Not good for your mental health, bro.
No.
Not good at all.
No.
I know a lot of... Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just... It's not something that's, bothering me necessarily, but I think it's very important for college students to have.
Specifically, the terminology, bruff.
Bruff, yeah.
Bruff.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think that's just kind of goes along the lines of you got your friends, but you got your family. So you got your acquaintances or maybe your classmates. Because I call them semester friends, which a couple of them have not appreciated. Where you go to class with them and you study together.
You can imagine what I'm talking about. Though,
right, I understand.
You see them as friends only for that semester, and as soon as they're gone, you don't expect to hang out. Mm-hmm. That's just how it goes. It's not like you don't hate them. Right. It's just kind of that's the friendship you expect out of them. And then that's fine.
And you got to set those expectations.
Yeah. And it's not a bad expectation necessarily. It's just what's happening. This is kind of what they want, and that's kind of what you just got to deal with.
Yeah. It's a partnership.
Yeah. And sometimes, generally it might be the other way around, where sometimes there are some people that you don't want to be good friends with. That's not a bad thing necessarily. It just is what it is.
Yeah, there's some people you don't click with, you know, but they're helpful, you know?
Yeah.
And you go through class together and you can definitely work together, you know?
Yeah. But they ain't the bruff.
But they ain't the bruff. You know, exactly. you got your circle of worker bees. Yeah. You know, because I'm sure some people are going to be sharing cubicles with a guy named Dave. Mm-hmm. I don't know if there's a Dave out there who's listening to this, but if you just have a Dave in your office who...
A Dave, a John, or a Steve.
Or a Steve, or a Kelly. It can be a girl.
Or a Kelly.
And they're just...
But we're talking about bruffs here.
Bruff. I mean,
everyone's a bruff.
It's 2019.
Okay. All right. Never
brought it in.
Okay. Everyone's a bruff. I take that back.
Yeah. Everyone can be a bruff. But you have your Daves, your Kellys, your Steves, your Robs, your Johns. And maybe one of them, you're just, man, I like this person. Yeah. But I'm not going to hang out with them on the weekend. This is just my non-bruff friend.
Yeah. I guess. I guess this could lead into like our next topic necessarily because what we're talking about like right after this is we're talking about not being soft around people.
Right.
Especially in the case of I'd consider the middle category where it's the people who are just exclusively around you just for the work, just for the business, just for the I guess objective aspect of your life. And I guess this could apply to many situations. And I personally experience it sometimes when I'm like a tutoring. Because I'm a tutor on campus for computer science. And so I would help people with their homeworks. And I would give them a sort of pathway of like, this is how you solve this problem. Or if you can't fix things, maybe you could change this little thing. Yeah. And that would fix it all. And there's a lot of people on campus who, yes, they are like genuinely like probably more worried about their work than they care more so about being a friend with you. And I don't expect anything, personally. I just think it's cool getting to meet people. But there are the people that do like to, I guess, take advantage of your position. Because you are a tutor and your job is to help students. Yeah. They take that more as, hey, your job is to essentially do my work for me. And as you can imagine, being a tutor, I can't exactly give them the answer. That's not my job. I'm supposed to help them understand what they're supposed to do. Yeah. And if they give me their homework and they're like, can you help me with this? And then I ask them what's the issue that they're having. And they're telling me I can't get any of this to work. Or like, what am I supposed to do for all of this? Well, first of all, I don't know the assignment. Yeah. Like, I don't actually know what questions you're going over. And I don't know, like, what specific things your professors told you that you're supposed to do for your assignment. I'm not in your classes. I don't know the minute things. But I do know that if you have a general programming question with a general solution, of course I can help you with that. Because that's not hard to explain. But if you expect a tutor to do your homework assignment from the start to the end just because you don't know what you're supposed to do and you don't want to put in the effort, that's kind of messed up. Yeah. I've got a professor at A&M, and he's a big stickler on, I guess, tutoring businesses in a way, because you have your tutors that work through the library and they don't have access to any form or tests or anything. Yeah. But there are a couple of tutoring businesses, off campus that somehow find a way to get professors old tests that maybe the answers haven't changed, and they'll give practice exams before, conveniently, the professor's exams during the regular semester. And these guys will pay $30-$40 to take a practice exam that's pretty much the exact same exam. And then you'll go over the practice exam and conveniently get all of the answers to it. Conveniently. Conveniently, yeah, because you want to check your work. You want to be thorough and make sure you did everything. I would like to point out that I personally have never partaken in this activity. No, I'm a good boy. Actually, I just don't have the money to pay for that, but yeah, but regardless, right? But I think it's that same issue that you were addressing, because I mean, you seem to be a tutor who is not focused on the business aspect of it. You're focused on the service aspect of it. You know, you're not trying to do this for a profit. You're trying to do this. Well, it is your job, but you're trying to do this to genuinely help people, and that's your main motivation behind it. Otherwise, you would be, extorting people for answers. I mean, think about it. There's like the students that I would help, right? And they're like people that really want to know the thing. They would come up to me and be like, hey, Rishy, I really cannot figure out this minor thing. And it's probably something that I've just forgotten. It just went way over my head. Can you just please help me get it over? Like, get over with it. And so I would go and help them out. And you can see the difference in someone's expression and their just genuine mindset about like their problem when you help them solve it. Because someone who cares about it will actually light up and they'll be like, oh, I didn't know I was supposed to do it like that. Yeah. Or they'll give you they'll show you why they're trying to put in their effort. As opposed to other people who probably don't care as much. I mean, and that's not necessarily wrong. You don't have to care about everything. But if you're not, I guess, if you're just kind of leeching off of a tutor for answers, I mean, it's clearly evident to even me. I can see it in your face when you would be like, hey, Rishi, can you do this all for me? And then when I do help you with the thing you need help with, and then they're just like, oh, okay, thanks. It's very much a very distinct personality type. Yeah, it might be personality, and it's definitely how they see the interaction and the relationship between you two, because, if they think it's just purely business, then they're going to treat it like a business relationship. Yeah. And again, it's not as if that's a negative reflection on you, or they think, oh, this guy is just
useless or a monkey here to help me.
Right.
But they just don't see that whole time and that whole space as something that is, I guess, worth it for them. You know, they seem to think that even while they're there, that this situation is beneath them and they shouldn't have to go to tutoring. They shouldn't have to get all this work done to get the test or to get the grade, because it should just be kind of given to them. But,
which is kind of different, I think, in the college aspect, because you are putting a bunch of money into your education.
Yeah.
And if you're just using your education in an aspect where you're just like, okay, how can I get through this without actually learning it? It's just kind of like, what's the point? You could have done this on a YouTube video. You could have learned all of this from any other method from college.
Yeah.
I would imagine you would go to college so you could learn all this stuff. Of course, things get in the way. Life gets hard. I get that. But you can tell the difference between someone who's just having a bad day and someone who genuinely does not care.
Right. Or someone who genuinely doesn't understand the material.
Right.
You know, because sometimes, I mean, especially if it was math or computer science, I'd be the guy walking in like, well, it wouldn't be my major, first of all. That would be my first mistake, is trying to be a computer science major, knowing who I am. But I genuinely, if I don't understand something with math, it's 0 or 100. I either completely understand it and I get the concept, or I am nowhere.
You're just lost for a while.
Exactly. Just completely lost.
Yeah.
It's binary in that sense. It's rather like digital rather than analog. It's kind of a switch that you have to flip. But, you know, to quote you, as soon as you see that switch flip in other people, you can tell that that's what it was for them, and they're trying to learn this material and they're trying to absorb the knowledge and get better, and they're making the effort and they're putting their foot forward to get better. You feel, I imagine, incredibly blessed to be there to help them, but also like, hopefully like they feel grateful, you know, you see the gratitude from them, and that's your reward. To be appreciated, to be needed, and to be wanted in a way, if they keep coming back for more.
Or if it's someone who, like, I had one person that I helped tutor who thought that they thought I didn't know what I was doing. And so they asked me to come over, and then they were just like, are you the right tutor for this? And I was just like, okay, well, let me look at the assignment real quick. And then I looked through it, I fixed the issue that they're having, and then they're just like, oh, what the heck, you actually figured it out. And I was just like, exactly, I am the right tutor for this. I know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And it's just kind of like, you're just going to encounter a billion types of people when you're working in any industry, really, I feel.
Yeah.
And so in tutoring, I encounter the people who don't think you know what you're doing, the people that take advantage of you, or the people that genuinely want to learn. And there's a lot more than that. It's just like the main ones I've seen so far.
Yeah. And I hate to, you know, break it down and to categorize and like put labels on people, but is there any group of people that you've noticed that either within your major or outside of your major that like are those people who either come to you and they want to learn, or they come to you and they just want answers?
There are people who come to me and just want answers, and there are people who come to me and genuinely want to learn.
Yeah.
I don't think of it as labeling. I think of it as just...
But is there any group of people...
That's just what they are, I guess. That's just the kind of state of their life that they are.
Got you.
So I don't think of it as putting people into groups or putting people, like, labeling them or, like, branding them like a cow. But I think of it more as just, like, this is just your state of mind. This is your personality right now. Of course, you're not going to stay that personality forever. At least I hope not. But... yeah, that's just what I've seen. It's just patterns more so than groups.
Got you.
Yeah.
There's no specific major that comes to you more often or for different reasons?
Well, I am a computer science student.
Right.
So everyone who's in the lab is a generally computer science student.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, sometimes you have cybersecurity people or, like, I guess business, all this stuff. Any class that you, or just generally have a computer science like related course, like a Java intro to Java course, you know. Everyone's gonna have questions at some point. That's natural. If you just get it all from the start, I feel like that's kind of weird. Because I feel like the way that you learn languages and stuff in general, like programming languages, is by making mistakes and then learning, okay, how do things actually work? You know.
Walk me through some of that. I know you're not going to teach me computer science in 10 minutes, but I've heard people describe coding as a language, and kind of, because you took a foreign language in high school also. Did you take...
I took Spanish, but
yeah, like... Spanish. Is it similar...
I don't know if I can say they're related at all.
Right. Not the languages are similar, but how you learn and how you process that information.
Okay.
How does the two compare in terms of learning the material?
See, like, the two languages are, like, if we're comparing Spanish to, like, programming in, like, Java, of course they're, like, very different.
Right.
So, like, Spanish, of course, is more like a communicative language, where you're actually using it to learn information or to communicate information with someone else, as opposed to a programming language, which you're trying to communicate language with an operating system.
Yeah, it's more imperative.
Right.
It's just commands.
And I think of it more as, with Spanish, you're more so trying to get from point A to point B in terms of communicating and getting a point across, as opposed to programming where you're trying to solve a problem. Like, how do I get the computer to do what I want it to do? And you can only do that through, I guess, knowing how the language works. And that would be through understanding how variables work, or understanding how loops and, like, just conditions and structures and objects and all of that stuff works. And that's just a way of managing information and utilizing it in different ways, as opposed to Spanish, which is just like you learning different words and then learning how the words come together to form a sentence that you could use to, I guess, convey a message to someone else.
Yeah.
So they're very different.
Right. And I think you hit on it in terms of, I guess, well, because the computer kind of talks to you. That's weird, isn't it? But, like, you'll get a response from the computer as you put commands and stuff into it. And you talked about it in terms of trying to solve a problem, but I think the whole point of language, and I wanted to get to this, was, problem solving in a way. And so, maybe if it's just learning like Spanish, the only problem you're trying to solve is the disconnect in communication, and then it's kind of circular in that you learn the language, and learning the language is the problem, and so once you learn the language, problem solved. Whereas you learn the language in computer science, in programming, Java.
But then after you learn it, you use that to solve problems.
Right. Well, that's how we use, English. That's how we use any language, is just to
no,
get
but
things done.
I guess I mean more so, like, once you learn the basics, you use that as a way of, like, solving more projects, or, like, working on more, I guess, independent, like, activities, or, like, homework assignments and stuff like that. I feel like you can't do the same thing with Spanish.
Is there a certain amount of control you feel like you have when you can code a script?
It's, like, it's convenient, too, because, like, if you mess up along the way, it's not, like, something bad's gonna happen, or you, like, ruin your computer, or, like, you damage, like, a potential friendship if you miscommunicate what you're trying to say. It's more so, like, if you make an error, the computer will tell you, okay, here's the error, and then this is how you can, like, fix it, or, like, here's how you can improve what you're trying to do.
Right.
And through that, you can get from point A to point B faster.
I know a guy, his name is Steve-O, and he works, I think he's a software developer or something like that. He does a lot of computer stuff, and he's tried to explain it to me a couple of times. He's mainly just told stories of how he can code. I think he had to just run tests on computers or something. He had to run tests or update software, and he would just be clicking through just the different computers within, a lab or a desk and making sure he was updating all of them. But then he thought to himself, wait, I could just run a script or write a script. And he just ran it on all the computers and then sat down and played Pokemon or something for a couple of weeks. And he went in and told his boss, hey, I'm done. Well, is there anything else I can do? He's like, no, just kind of sit here and hang out in a way. So that radical efficiency can be an asset to you, certainly, within the explicitly, like, computer science world if you're a software developer. But then outside of the computer science world as well, you work for any business and you troubleshoot their freaking printer, they'll, bless you and make you a saint,
It's funny,
But it's good. And I think, I don't know, do you see any intersect between, digital coding language and then just speaking language in terms of when we're texting one another, when we do instant messenger, because inherently you're kind of taking, the ones and zeros and they can appear on the screen in ways that I can't comprehend, but I know there's fundamentally, input and output, and the computer's doing all the rest. Do you think that texting in general is affecting our language in a way that's making it more towards a computer or digital style? Does that make sense?
Not exactly.
So, like, because people talk about how the medium is the message. Okay. And so when you're talking with somebody and we're face to face, IRL, in real life, we have the body language, we have the tone of voice. Right. We have all these different, external variables besides the words that I'm physically speaking to you to kind of help this conversation go in a way where we don't start punching each other. Right. Threat, LOL. Right. Right. But then, either over the phone or especially over texting, people have said, man, it's such a distant way of communicating and it's almost cold and, computer-esque. Just when things become digital and more like computers, as we talk to each other like we talk to computers, if that makes sense, then things kind of go south because we've lost the humanity in our voice.
Yeah.
Is that something that you could resonate with or talk
in terms of computer science, or just in general?
In general. Do you think there's a correlation between how we talk online and how we interact with people in real life?
Okay, so, I mean, I feel like it just comes more so in the... I don't think it's based off of communication anymore. Like, I used to think that the form of communication affected, like, how you respond or how you talk to people. Mm-hmm. I don't really think that anymore. I feel like you could talk on any form of communication and convey exactly what you want to, but it's just your choice if you want to, I guess. Because you can tell me that, like, a texting form of communication may be less genuine than, like, talking over the phone or meeting someone over Skype or just talking to someone in person. Of course, it seems theoretically less genuine, but I feel like if you're actually interested in the conversation, if you're actually there to have the back and forth that comes with a good conversation, then it doesn't matter how you're doing it. You could be doing this over email and have the greatest time of your life. Yeah. But
that's why online dating works. It's interesting how...
Yeah.
I mean, because I've experienced this where you get, you know, a new significant other, or you just start texting people. I guess people talk or text now before they start going out and start dating, because there's a lot of stuff about it. You can kind of avoid these awkward questions in real life. You don't have this physical person, this weird threatening presence in front of you, so you can start talking and have different conversations than you would face to face, because your confidence is higher. There's somebody further away from you, and there's pros and cons to that. But in terms of just, you know, pure, as you said, you know, genuine, the perceived oh gosh, there's no way I can say that correctly.
I guess it's more so, like, I think of it more so as it's just how much you care about the conversation, regardless of the medium. If you feel like you're enjoying talking to someone else, or you're having, like, a good enough conversation that you...
But it's hard to convey that.
Yeah, it is. And I think in terms of what you were talking about before with, like, dating apps and stuff like that, I think the real difference is the fact that it is the first conversation where you're talking to someone and just a normal conversation you would have with someone. Yeah. Because it's very different to have the first conversation you have with someone be over the internet. Because not only do you not know the person like, in the real world, like, you don't have a sense of who they are. So the only thing you can go off of is the amount of words.
Right.
Which...
Or their avatar, but
their avatar, their words, or their description, or the pictures that they post and stuff like that. Which I know goes back on what I said earlier in terms of, like, it depends on how much you enjoy it, or just how much both people, like, respond to that conversation. But I guess it is different in terms of, like, the first time, because I know I personally would not like that idea of just meeting someone online, because I don't get a good idea of what they are. Right. And I feel like just for the first time, like, the first time you meet people, like, the way you introduce yourself to them.
You essentially have two first impressions.
Yes. Well, you kind of have to have a good enough first impression in real life to make it, I guess, go out of that. In my opinion. Like, of course, having a good conversation over any other form of medium is great. Like, just talking to people is great. Like, that's not dependent on the medium. But I guess knowing someone in person, the first time you meet them, as opposed to just getting an email, like, from a recruiter, right? When you have an email from a recruiter for, like, an internship position or, like, a job position like that, you don't actually know the recruiter. And I feel like the recruiter doesn't know you either. So whenever they get, like, job applications, they're not actually evaluating you as a person from someone they met in real life. They're evaluating you based off of words on a piece of paper called a resume. And, of course, I feel like, and I think a lot of people could agree, the first impression that you should make someone should be off of what you feel like when you talk to them just in the real world.
Right. Well, and that's why they have interviews, right? Because they understand the radical efficiency of submit resumes online, throw out a Google Doc, whatever you do for your business, or throw out some ads on Indeed or Monster, whatever they are.
Right, but I guess I mean just, like, the first way, because I guess this applies to internships, because internships get so many applications that it might be even really impossible or even hard just to find the candidates you're looking for. So you're just going to go for either the most convenient people or the people that you see are, like, the most efficient to have
Yeah.
as close as possible to what you need it, as opposed to just waiting throughout the entire time and just waiting for the correct people, right? Mm-hmm. So, of course, when you look at the two options, you're going to take the one that's more convenient on the company of just getting the people that you need and then getting away with it. And this applies a lot when it comes to like applying for your internships online, because they'll have positions open for a long amount of time, and they'll hire the people who applied at the very beginning, regardless of having it for however long, just because they need to one, get people at the beginning, and they two, need to find people who could be better. And if they can't be better, then they're just gonna stick to what you had before.
Yeah. I don't know if I'm allowed to reveal I can't reveal specific names or anything, and I
that's
won't.
fine.
But so I'm a part of an organization on my campus, and we had like certain positions that we were interviewing for, and we would read the applications, and it's all hush-hush business about that.
Right.
But I remember, everybody else had these different criteria that they were looking for, because there were about, maybe even 60 of us that were looking through applications, because there were a lot of spots open.
Yeah.
And everybody had these different criteria they were looking for in terms of, how involved were they on campus? How experienced were they? Did they like work? Were they, interested? How this, that, or the other thing? And my only thing was just how they wrote on the resume. Mm-hmm. And that kind of sold probably a bunch of people short-sighted.
Right.
But I feel like, and this might be my pride talking, I can gauge somebody's heart by reading their words, especially when you have those short answer questions, because it's like, okay, what's your name? What major are you? Like, how long have you been at the school? Mm-hmm. There's no way to gauge anything off that, and that's strangely how I think a bunch of people were, because they were making all these quotas in terms of, I want this many sophomores, I want this many freshmen,
right.
I want this person who's already done this or is this level of involved. I'm like, okay, fine, cool. But I was always looking at, there were a couple of boxes in particular. One of them was, share, your personal story of how you came into a relationship with Jesus, because it was just a Christian organization. Okay. And the other one was, what is something that you are passionate about, or two things that you're passionate about. Mm-hmm. And so I would like kind of skip a bunch of things, and I would just read those two, and I would just analyze the living heck out of them, and I would kind of vet them that way. Yeah. And not just like, oh wow, this guy's got a really cool story, but like, does this person have a story that's genuinely honest to them? Does this sound like it's been fabricated?
Like, would you be able to tell if someone just made something up?
I don't know if I would go that far, but that's why you have the interview as well, because we would interview people, and I didn't get to interview as many people as I would like from, my quote-unquote top portion of the list. But
I guess I mean from the parts you read.
Right. Sometimes, yeah, because I think, and this sounds rude and, kind of shallow of me, but there are very basic answers to give, and there are personal answers to give. So a lot of it would be like, how personal is this answer to you? Mm-hmm. And anybody who like remotely broke down that boundary of this is personal to me, as opposed to something that I've seen very much in like 80 or 100 other applications, and I was like, okay, not just, man, this guy, went to the moon, and that's his story. Yeah. It's like, there's a certain, and they could tell 90% of the same story, but just have this one detail that was different, and I'm like, there's something in that one detail. Yeah. Or the way that they phrase things, or the way that they explain things about who they are, what they're passionate about. You can kind of hear it in their voice.
Is it like something interesting, or is it something that you're not vibing with?
With which one?
Okay, so you said there's something that they might have said that either sparked something.
Right.
It might have been either something. I'm saying, is it something that like you think you could capitalize on because you want to know more about them, or is it something more?
Well, and a big thing for me also was vulnerability. Yeah. Because I wanted to know as much as possible about these guys during the application process, not just, okay, do they want to be involved in this organization, but how comfortable are they sharing themselves in general, And it's not that there's anything wrong with being introverted, but I wanted to work with guys who I knew were going to be open. Yeah. And so the more openness and vulnerability I saw in the application in terms of what their story's been like and what they are passionate about, people who aren't afraid to be passionate or afraid to have done stuff that was wrong in their past was a big thing. I was like, the fact that you have the courage to put this on your application shows me that you have moved so far past it that it doesn't consume you anymore. You're not afraid to admit that you've done something wrong, and so that to me was a big green flag in terms of, I can trust this person. Yeah. I can trust this person enough to work with them and grow with them and, hopefully lead them, and then learn from them as well along the way.
Would you be able to tell between someone who's just like a normal, like, person who's writing something and I guess between, let's say, 3 people. One's like the normal person just writing it just so they can get their application in.
Right.
Another person would be like someone who really wants to get in and really wants to be part of the organization, contribute and all that. And maybe someone who's a little bit too passionate.
Right. Well, I think so. There are certain words and phrases that other people will get hung up on, and I try not to get hung up on like itty bitty details because sometimes you mess up and you goof and you have a typo, whatever. There's definitely outliers on both sides where some people just don't know how to write an application, and not that they're not good people, not that they don't deserve to be in the organization, but I just couldn't tell or get a good enough read by the application to, I guess, justify interviewing them, even if I could, because it's not like I got to choose everybody I interviewed.
Right.
And so there was that where I was just like, I don't want to be like this, but it's much easier to kind of dismiss your application because I just couldn't get a bead there. And then there were some applications that everyone looks at and like they're on everybody's list in terms of this person clearly knows their stuff, you know, not just is passionate about the organization, but, you know, has already led here, is super active and super involved, but is also free for a good portion of the time. And they just know how to communicate well on paper. And then the interview is usually more of a confirming process than a denying process. Because if somebody wants to interview you, like everybody gets an interview, but if somebody sits down with your interview, they tend, especially like the same gender one, they will have chosen you sometimes.
Okay.
Right. And so they try to like confirm, okay, is this a good match? You know, is this a guy that I want? And then that doesn't even guarantee that you'll get them because the way that they actually do the selections, so to speak, it's not always under your control. And that's just edging into territory that I'm contractually not allowed to talk about. So, but
the businessy side.
Right. Well, because there's some of it that just, I mean, you want to guard the applicants and the applications and not reveal too much about the process because that can make people anxious or worried. So even if nobody ever hears this, it's like just a precaution.
Yeah.
So
of course.
But yeah, I guess what got us on this train, you talking about the jobs and the interviews, looking at language and communication on paper and just through really print in general, just anything but face to face. It's interesting how much you still need or you feel like you need to gauge whether or not this person is a good partner, a working partner, a friend, you know, a dating relationship, whatever it is. You still feel like you need that physical intimacy.
Yeah, because I feel like that's just the point of being human. Because if I don't have that aspect, I don't know if I'm talking to a robot or not. And because bots are becoming such a big part of the world now, because if you're doing something on an equal level of effort that a bot would do, I don't know if you're a person.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be able to tell if you're like someone who's capable of so much more than what an automated machine could send me in 3 seconds.
Yeah. Damn.
So it's like, I don't know. What do you value, Cody, in terms of those two, I guess?
You're going to have to rephrase that. I'm sorry.
I guess, like, you know how I said, like, I needed that, like, it's kind of a dichotomy for me where I, like, meeting people for the first time, I feel like you have to know them in person as opposed to just having a good conversation with people can happen anywhere. What do you think about that?
In terms of you got to be a good texter and a good in-person friend?
I mean, it doesn't have to be texting. It could be anything. Right. I guess, because that was my opinion. Where I
think you got to be a well-rounded communicator. I think that's almost not, I hate to be just this blunt about it, but I think that's part of being a competent individual, especially nowadays, if you're looking for work in particular. Yeah. Because if you're not a competent and well-rounded communicator, because say you're really good at texting and you can write memos out the wazoo, but you can't stand up and give a presentation in front of 10 people, and you can't explain to people physically what's going on, then what if somebody has a question? What if somebody comes into your office with a question about the email and you can't explain it? Yeah. You know, and there's efficiency in texting and, you know, speaking and conversing over that medium in the sense that you can craft everything. But if somebody comes into me just for even more efficiency's sake, like, let's try to have a 2-minute conversation and resolve this one bit. If you cannot provide clarity in that situation, if you can't guide people into the right direction, you create more problems than you solve. You know, so it's not just having one medium that you're good with. It's being able to talk face to face. It's being able to text. It's being able to call. Being able to like listen and interview, do all these different things, put them together, and you kind of get, I guess, your ideal worker bee or leader, whatever you want to call them, or even just friend, because I've got friends whom I love and I've known them long enough to know that this is just who they are, that can't text or text back worth anything. And that's okay, because I still love them, but I know just personally I have to call them.
Yeah.
You know,
I guess this could lead into like one of the main points that I wanted to get to like eventually, which was how do you tell the difference between someone who maybe isn't at the position that they want to be and they're trying to get there, and someone who doesn't want to get there at all? Maybe someone who just doesn't care.
In terms of an unbalanced friendship.
Right. Business.
Got you.
Anything.
So,
right. Like how can you tell the difference between someone who like does want to improve their life and someone who doesn't? Or I guess another way to rephrase this, how can you tell between someone who in your mind or in my mind I would take as a real person and someone who I would think is not like a real person?
Yeah, like faking it until they're making it.
Faking it until they're making it, or just I guess I would interpret like a fake person as someone who just kind of is living their life, but they're not enjoying it.
I think there's a couple of distinctions to be made, because there's certainly a lot of cross sections there.
Yeah.
I'd love to start with the first one that you hit on, because it's really, really big with defining the relationship, and I guess I'll use those words for it. And whether that's in business, whether that's a friendship, whether that's a dating relationship, you know, you've got to be able to establish clarity with somebody, and you've got to be able to establish expectations, and you got to do that openly. And in my personal opinion, I think face-to-face is the best way to do that. Like you said, if you're good enough at the medium of texting, if both people understand what you're trying to say, or like texting, calling, IMing, whatever you're doing, you can do it that way. I just prefer the face of another human being sitting across from me when I'm trying to establish expectations and say, hey, you know, if it's with a group project, I'm like, okay, guys, let's set out a plan and let's figure out who's going to do what. And we're going to go out and do this. And then we're going to text each other halfway through this week to see how far along we've gotten.
Yeah, it's like an update.
Right. You know, but if you don't set those expectations beforehand, and I just text somebody in my group project halfway through the week and ask them, you know, even if we are in the group project and I have this reasonable expectation of them texting me back, if I ask them to give me something that I haven't previously established an expectation for, then there's not a whole lot of obligation for them to give it to me. There's certainly reason for them to, but they're not obligated by anything. They're not obligated by their word to my request, if that makes sense.
Like, you don't expect it.
Right. And that's, I think, where a lot of miscommunication happens, and where a lot of, honestly, frustration happens, because people have, in some shape or form, established expectations in their own mind of what something should be, you know, especially with dating, where one person's like, yes, these are dates. We're going to go on some more dates and we're going to be together and that's going to be great. And the other person's like, nah, but no one will say anything. And so, you know, you're finally in this awkward tension, you know, that needs to be resolved, but nobody's willing to say anything. And as soon as somebody brings up their expectations and kind of puts them on the other person, whichever way that goes, there's just this unbalance, or that has never been mitigated, I guess. That can't...
I guess that's just more so just the awkwardness of, like, the beginning in the dating aspect. Because, like, that kind of relates to what I'm saying. Like, because the awkwardness happens and the communication can't go both ways, because that is around and someone's not going to step up and just say what they mean to say. Like, how do you tell the difference between someone who's, like...
leading you on.
Maybe just being a genuine interested person in you, and someone who maybe can't convey the things that they want to say, or someone who takes advantage of you.
Yeah. Well, I think it just all takes conversation. And I think, you know, it's how do you tell? I think that question in and of itself is like you're trying to diagnose from afar, if that makes sense. You're trying to look at somebody engage either through the text or through their actions, which you kind of can if you see that they're just so distant and so removed that they're not texting you back, they're not calling you back, they're just kind of walking away from you. Then yes, take that as a sign that they're kind of not interested. But even if while y'all are talking and you seem to be having a good time, but you're just not able to firmly establish where you are and define that relationship, you gotta have a conversation. You've got to be able to have a conversation, however terrifying it might be. You know, and the fact that it is, you know, it is terrifying because it's, you know, emotion is involved. You're invested personally, but I think if you are humble with the situation and kind of content with the situation wherever it goes,
Yeah.
and you don't have this firm, super high expectation or just any expectation one way or the other from the beginning, and you're kind of neutral, then you can't necessarily be let down, if that makes sense. You got to be able to hold it with an open hand.
Yeah.
And then still be able to have that conversation. You don't want to just hold it with an open hand and then say, okay, whatever happens, I'm fine with, when really you're not, and then you never have a conversation. You never get that clarity, and you're constantly living in this anxiety, in this anxious space where the not knowing is killing you.
Yeah. I guess what you're getting at is just like you really can't answer the question.
Right.
Because the question is inherently like,
Let's mind
how do I
read.
figure this out by not actually answering it? Like, how do I figure this out without actually doing what's the obvious answer,
right,
which is just having the conversation that you need to have.
Well, and there's certainly benefit, and I've done this, and I've had, it happens to me both ways, where either I'll go to somebody and ask this question, or somebody will come to me asking this question, hey, show me, like, they'll show me a text and be like, hey, what does this mean? Or what does this person think? What are they trying to say?
Yeah.
I don't know.
At the end of the day, it doesn't
I'm
matter.
not that person. Yeah.
Yeah.
Or what's your opinion on, someone relays this conversation that happened, and they're like, what do you think? I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm not inside either of y'all's heads.
Yeah.
And if it's something that's going on between you two, or however big the group is, then y'all have got to be able to talk things out.
Yeah. Because
together.
what you might interpret might not actually be what's actually going on.
And you can have really wise friends who are just able to read the situation better than you are, because you have that objectivity from the outside, especially when you're emotionally invested in like a dating relationship, seeking counsel in that respect and thinking, okay, I don't want to prejudge here. I don't want to cast this, label on somebody immediately. I want to show them this text or regurgitate this conversation for the sake of me giving them the benefit of the doubt, and that can be good, but it's also just, how are you going about things? It's tough. It really is.
I can imagine. I'm trying to think, like, cause I'm sort of lost myself.
You're good.
Okay, so let's give a theoretical scenario.
All right.
You have a friend, right?
I have a couple.
Maybe.
Yeah.
that's debatable.
Right.
But let's say
couple bruffs.
Let's say it's a girl that you like, right? And you're heavily interested in her. And let's say, like, theoretically, one day, like, you feel like, I don't know, like, you feel like there's something going on with the relationship, and then you find out, and
that it could go
like
somewhere.
the very next day, or like maybe you find out somewhere along the lines that the relationship that you thought you had with them,
right,
they're actually having with a bunch of other people. And the fact that, like, you think that, like, you guys have a connection with them, or like you think that, like, there's something there, but in reality there's nothing there.
Yeah.
And the fact that they don't share the same mentality that you do, and it's more, it's not, it's maybe it's part of it is just you just not putting in the effort to, like, have the conversation with them.
Right.
But part of it might also be that they are just people that are taking advantage of you, right? Or they're just taking advantage of the fact that they feel special, and like they don't want to, I guess want to ruin that, because it wouldn't be beneficial for them.
Right. I'm trying to think back, because I've, again, had it both ways, and I think it's kind of gone from one end of the spectrum to the other.
Yeah.
Because certainly in high school, I mean, we were friends, but I think, we kind of had this close circle of friends, and we didn't travel a whole lot outside of it.
Yeah.
So whenever I met a girl in particular who I had a connection with and could talk to for, a couple hours at a time, it was the only time I'd ever experienced that. And so I inherently thought that was something special, because it was something that had never happened to me, right? I hadn't experienced that level of connection with anybody. But I don't want to just throw this label on all girls, but girls in general, I think, just have looser circles of friends, and they talk a little bit more and a little bit more openly than guys do, especially about their feelings and how they're going about life. And so for her, and for a couple of girls who would talk to me pretty openly in high school, or just even freshman year in college, I'd be like, is this person into me? Do they like me? They're sharing a whole lot. What do I make of this situation? When really, and I never ask the question, because I'm just, shy boy over here, not wanting to make a scene. But it was always this, again, ambiguity and anxiety, this anxious space where I didn't know if there were any feelings. And then, of course, there are a couple of those moments where you start to catch feels and you're like terrified because you don't want to be the one catching feels when they're clearly not.
Yeah.
But then as I've gotten more open and as I've started talking to more people and as I've gotten more vulnerable about, just where I've been and different things that I've experienced, then I know I have on one or two occasions put off that same vibe of incredible openness to somebody who hasn't experienced that before. And if they haven't experienced that depth of conversation, from the get-go with somebody, then they might misinterpret your intentions, especially when it comes to dating in terms of, oh my gosh, he's so open with me.
Yeah.
He's so vulnerable, or she is, vice versa.
But I think using the word vulnerable really implies like a negative connotation. Like you don't know how to, I guess, portray the things that you want. Like you're not very confident in what you're saying. You know what I mean? Like I know you're using the word vulnerable in the sense of like open, right?
Right.
But I think just like the way that like the word is generally connotated,
right.
It's more so in the negative aspect. But like
I tend to always use it in a positive aspect.
Yeah.
And that's more of a personal thing. Probably just it's church speak in a lot of different ways.
Yeah.
But I think, it definitely goes hand in hand with openness, but especially when it comes to things that you are anxious about, because it's openness with a hint of anxiety, because it's knowing that I could say to this person, hey, I've struggled with this, and this, and these are the mistakes I've made, and the fact that you have to have some courage, again, opening up about those mistakes, for the sake of whatever future relationship might come about it, because you want to have that openness and honesty there. But the fact that there's some stigma attached to whatever you did, whether it's like you've, messed around sexually in high school, or you were, just a party animal and you did drugs or alcohol. There's like a lot of fear in saying, this is who I was, especially if it's like, this is who I still am.
Yeah.
And so that's what I mean by vulnerability, because it's more like courage in a way, and openness, maybe a bit better way to describe it without the negative connotation.
Okay. So I guess this will lead on to another good question. So at what point did you feel like you went from thinking about the idea of you being open as being vulnerable to more so you being open and being confident in what you're thinking?
I think they go hand in hand.
Make that like bridge. Like,
they go hand in hand. I think it was just when I started to be more open and vulnerable, because I always saw it as something that people had to do when they had already gone through their situations, if that makes sense. So you'll see like a recovering alcoholic or an alcoholic who's already been 30 years sober talk about their story about how they got clean. And you're like, man, okay, you can be vulnerable about your past as long as you're not still going through it in a way. And so that's what I thought openness was, is being like, man, this is who I was and I'm completely different now. But what I've kind of learned, especially the past couple of years, is the ability to say, hey man, this is who I was, and it's still trickling into who I am now. And this is what I'm still struggling with. These are the areas of my life where I'm still like definitely not perfect, and I've never quite figured it out. And being able to admit that like you're still messed up, not just that you were messed up, but that you're still messed up, takes a lot, But I've increasingly gotten more comfortable with it as I've gotten better friends, honestly. people who I can trust with that information, who I know aren't going to judge me, who are going to help me, who are going to love me in ways that, fake friends or non-bruffs wouldn't do. Non-bruffs.
Yeah. Big laughs. Okay, so I guess in terms of this aspect, I kind of grew from it because, okay, so, all right, this is going to be a big topic as well.
Let's go.
Okay, so you go from, I personally feel like you go from not being confident, I guess, diffident, whatever they teach you in high school.
Right.
You go from that to being confident when you learn to, like, accept, like, everything about yourself. Like, I used to feel really diffident in the aspect of, like, I would compare myself to literally everyone else. And that's because I like learning from everyone else. And I like looking at what aspects of people are really good and could benefit their life, right?
Yeah.
But in terms of doing that, you also take, like, a negative impression on yourself, and you're like, oh, I'm not that good, or I'm not like that person.
Right. Self-deprecating.
And it's just, being in that mindset for a while just kind of makes you feel miserable. Like, right? And it's just kind of like you fall yourself down a hole where you're trying to learn how to become good enough, or you're trying to become better in a certain aspect in comparison to someone else. And I guess that's a key word there. So you're comparing. And that's not exactly the right way to go about it. Because the way you go from being not confident at all in yourself to being confident in like everything that you do is by accepting like what you are in your current moment, regardless of how good you and bad you are. Just understanding that you are that right now, even if you're not good enough, even if people don't like where you're at least you're there.
Yeah.
At least that's what you are, and you can get better and you can improve. And you shouldn't feel bad about where you are, because that's just what you are right now. Of course, you can improve, and of course, things can change, but you are that, and you should accept it. Right?
Really, yeah. It's really good. And I think that goes along with, blooming where you're planted, because especially, and I can really only compare it to a couple of things that I've striven for long term with either tennis or writing or, just, I guess, being a decent human being in general. You feel like there are days when so my old tennis coach, his name's Rob, and he said one of the wisest things like I've ever heard in my life. And
what did he say?
He said the only person you should ever be in a competition with is the person that you were yesterday. And so you have that source of comparison, and that could be unhealthy, and you could still have this constant battle of self-image. But I think the heart behind that statement, at least the way I took it, was look at who you were yesterday in the mirror, look at who you are today in the mirror, and identify something that is improved.
Yeah.
Because, hopefully something has.
Yeah.
Right. And being able to rest in that progress, in whatever mundanity it might be that you brushed your teeth today and you didn't do it yesterday. You're taking a little bit better care of yourself. If you have this tiny corner of your room that you're fixing up, then eventually that corner is going to kind of spread out into other things. That's where I've been doing a lot of self-reflection recently, is just, discipline.
Yeah.
Because if I can be disciplined with my meals, with my workouts, with, actually getting together and continuing to meet with my friends instead of blowing them off for school or whatever.
Or just even cleaning your room.
Exactly. Or just literally cleaning your room. You can really do that rewiring of your mind where, maybe I don't have the confidence to lift 1,000 pounds, but I have the confidence in my ability to present myself as a functioning human, for lack of better words.
Yeah.
And I think you definitely, even in that space of, man, I'm only competing with myself here, you need people who are going to come alongside you and remind you of who you are, but also who you were. Not in this in this deprecating way where they're constantly belittling you and bringing up the past and saying, oh, you did this, you did that. But just reminding you that you're not there yet, and that there's always something that you can be working on and striving towards. I mean, that's the whole purpose of coaching. That's the whole purpose of teaching. That's the whole purpose, of just mentorship or discipleship or doing life in general, is just identifying the next step forward.
But it is a bit of both. Like I do agree with you where you're saying you should look at yourself introspectively, right? Where you should look at how you were before and improve based off of that. But it can't exactly just be that. Because if you live your life with just that, I feel like there's no way to improve physically.
Right.
Because you need a little bit of a push. And I feel like the little bit of a push is a bit of comparison with other people. Because, let's think about it. You want to become good at drawing, right?
Yeah.
You don't get good at drawing, I believe, personally, by just doing the same thing over and over and just kind of regurgitating the same art, the same style, or the same practice. You kind of have to look at inspiration, see how other people are doing something similar to what you're doing, and learn from it, but don't obsess over it. I guess that's the key difference, is when you obsess over doing something, you have to obsess over it in a healthy way. Like, you can't do it in a way that, deprecates your confidence. You have to do it as in, hey, this person's doing something cool, let me try to learn from that, and if I can't do it, well, I tried my best. I feel like that's, the healthiest mindset to go off of. Because if you keep doing this whole, oh, I'm not that good enough, I'm not that good enough, and then you will get better at what you're doing, because you will be practicing more because you're comparing yourself to someone else, but you won't feel good about it. You'll just feel miserable.
Well, and I think the problem with comparing yourself to other people, and really even to your former self, which is why I kind of loosely interpret that phrase from my coach, is that looking at another person is inherently a very rough standard, and there's no objective goal that can be, I guess, extrapolated by looking at another person, especially in the gym, and being like, I want to be that.
Yeah.
I want to be that big. Okay, you have to break that down and say, okay, maybe this guy has 20-inch biceps. Say, I want to get 20-inch biceps. Or maybe that guy's, got really big thighs. You say, I want really, really big thighs. And what do you do and what steps do you take practically to say, okay, got to work on your legs. Got to do that twice a week instead of once a week.
Okay.
Or curls or something. And so you can find really, objective and quantifiable things. And I think the key word there is objective.
Yeah.
Because if you look at that guy's biceps and just a simple shift in the phrasing and say, man, my biceps are never going to look like that.
Yeah.
Or like, look at them. Like you understand objectively, like there's a difference and there's a distance between like what your arm looks like and what that freaking bodybuilder's arm looks like.
It's taking more of like a practical approach of like, how do I get there rather than like, why am I not there?
But how do you handle that distance from where you are and what do you want to be? Like what's your mindset and what's your approach going to be? Are you going to take steps that, are practical and pragmatic and say, how do I compartmentalize the difference between where he is and where I am? Because chances are, they've been in the game longer than you. They're probably older than you. Yeah. They probably have a lot of things that they've done that you haven't done or tried, or they've been doing things that you're doing that they've just been doing it for a couple of more years. Yeah. And in that situation, I'm a little bit nervous to do it in the gym sometimes, but I have done it. But especially with other things, saying, just walking up to them and asking them like, hey,
like, how did you do this?
Exactly. Like how did you do this? And there's ways to go about that, like in a non-awkward way. There's certainly awkward ways of going about that, but looking at, inspiration and collaboration almost hand in hand, and then like letting your inspiration kind of push you forward, because as soon as that opportunity for inspiration becomes the source of like self-deprecation, it's literally your mindset. Yeah. And again, habits are nasty. Yeah. It takes forever to make them and they're so easy to break. So as long as you, or I guess vice versa, whatever they are, I don't know. I messed the words up there, but basically the longer you sit in a negative mindset or a self-deprecating mindset, the harder it's going to be for you to pull yourself out of it, because it's second nature to you. Whereas like if you look at things positively and whatever your source of positivity is, that's just going to be who you are. Yeah. Some of that surrounding yourself again with friends who love you enough to be real with you. Yeah. They don't want to be fake to you. You don't want fake friends or people who are just going to kind of assume delusion on you and say that you're better than you are and just puff you up. And you also don't want friends who are going to break you down. Yeah. You want to have a balance between confidence and humility. And, as much as you want to internalize that and make that all about how your mindset is, because I said mindset's a big thing, but, the community can make or break that mindset. Yeah. So, I probably talked about that more than I should have too.
I think we need to take a little bit of a break.
A little bit of a break?
Yeah.
LOL. We can do that.
Okay, sounds good.
Hi, everybody. We're back. Rishy had to pee. So...
My bee.
It's okay. We just had to take a little bit of a break. But we're back now. And we're here to talk about some more of the deep questions of the day. Starting with... Shoot, I have to look at the freaking notes now.
That's fine.
You're good. You're good. Why do we go back to the things that are bad for us, Rishy?
Can you expand on that question for a little bit?
All right. So... We've all got times where we know we're doing something we probably shouldn't be doing. Whether that, whether you have like a moral sense about it or just kind of an efficiency sense about it, where you think I could be doing something better than this, there's another option here that will be more helpful for me and more helpful to the situation. But either because of stubbornness or pride or whatever it is, you're stuck in this habit or this mode of thinking that is continuing to bring you down rather than up. But it seems that no matter, and you see this a lot with relationships, you see it a lot with especially like dating relationships or abusive relationships or addictions, where people are in situations where they become almost desensitized or uncomfortable, or so comfortable, with a bad situation that anything outside of that seems Mars, Yeah. And they keep coming back to that awful situation, or keep coming back to a certain type of person that continues to be destructive, be toxic, be hurtful to them. Like, why is it that we find so much comfort in doing things that we know aren't good for us?
Okay, I think it boils down to two, I guess, major points. I guess the first one is that it's kind of hard to visualize what it would be like if the habit or like the thing that you're doing wasn't part of your life, because it's become such a big part of what you do, right? Maybe it's like playing video games and then you need to do homework, right? Mm-hmm. Let's say that you play video games so much that like it distracts you from doing your homework, or like maybe you should be doing your homework and you're just pushing it off so you can just have more fun. I think that's kind of like one of the reasons of like, I guess, I don't know how to phrase this correctly. I guess it's more so just kind of like, because we don't think of our priorities necessarily as priorities, that we're valuing other things over them, and it's kind of like just kind of like a value statement in terms of like what do you in your current situation think is more important to you. In that scenario, it's like I think that getting a higher level in like a video game is probably more important than like a grade in a class,
right?
Which sounds dumb, but like it makes sense in their head, or like in the situation, because you want to get better at something rather than something else. And of course, it's not the correct thing, and I guess the question of why we choose that is because we don't have our priorities aligned correctly.
Yeah.
And I don't even know like a right way to tell people or tell someone else that they need to reorient their priorities, because you kind of have to you have to do a combination of things. You have to show them why it's better, and then you have to let them see themselves why it's better. Because first of all, people won't change their habits if they don't see something as a better option. I think like you won't immediately start to become like a skateboarder or something if you didn't find it fun, right? Or you wouldn't like start reading a bunch of books if you didn't see the value in reading them,
right?
So someone who's like heavily, I guess, invested in drinking coffee, they won't see the value of like not drinking coffee, because they always see it as something that wakes them up. And if you tell them like don't have coffee anymore, they're gonna take it as, oh, so you want me to be completely de-energized for the rest of the day, right? You're gonna take away the thing that keeps them awake and that keeps them doing what they need to do. Rather, you need to show them a way, and I don't even know of a way to do that. Like show them that not having the thing in their life may be the thing that's keeping them away from achieving what they want. You know?
Yeah, that's a really, really big thing for me. And I think you said it really, really well, and I'm surprised you said it on terms that I'm so familiar with, because I think that's how the church phrases a lot of things, if that makes sense. Because especially when you talk about people who, like if you're trying to convert somebody and bring them into the church, a lot of times people will try to fix people before they bring them into church, which is a no-no to begin with. You bring them to church, and then they kind of get fixed because they've seen something that's better, you know, theoretically, like God or Jesus, that's better than, you know, looking at pornography every night, than, you know, jerking off 6 times a day, then, it's a lot, then, you know, smoking dope or going out and just being whoever it is that you think you're being, or fronting or faking or lying or just being habitually angry or bitter towards people, you know. It's showing people not only their bitterness, because you can point at the problem, you know, or you can point towards the solution. And people try to balance the two because one has to be recognized in light of the other. So a lot of times, you know, the rhetoric of pastors is very interesting to me, because they'll talk, lying's a really easy one, because they look at, you know, the Bible as a source of truth. So when they say, hey, stop lying, they point people to the truth, or what they think is the truth in scripture, or to, you know, Jesus, who is the word made flesh and manifest. And so it's moving from one option to another. And even with, you know, I think addiction, or especially with, I think, the 12-step program, it's inherently a part of that program to where you don't just quit drinking or smoking, you replace it with something, right? Because chances are you just have an addicted personality. I consider that, like, I definitely have an addicted personality to a lot of things, that's just who I am. And so you constantly have to have something filling this hole that's been created by sobriety, the seeming hole that is. And a lot of times the church will frame it as, God is the puzzle piece that fits every single hole in one way or another. And it's just the way you frame him that makes him kind of the solution to every situation. And it's not like, oh, I'm hungry. God is your SpaghettiOs. Like, it's
the thing. Like, you can't say that's like the general solution to everything.
Right.
Of course, it's a supporting factor, and I think you've experienced some of it too, like in real life, where you're like, I don't know, you're actively involved in the church, and like your organization and everything, and I think you've seen the people who try to convert people on campus. Yep. And then you can see like their whole acts and like their whole spiel. And
what do you mean by act?
I guess like, the whole, I guess, process they go through with like converting people. They're just like, hey, do you have a minute so I can teach you about like the way of God, right? And then I feel like you can maybe relate to it on a better level than I can. But do you often see that like some people, like, it's so obvious that they're not interested in like converting or like being part of it, but you have the people that keep pushing the same person over and over.
Right. Well, that's I mean, literally buried into the rhetoric of evangelism. And so kind of speaking more on biblical terms right now. So even if you are somebody who's evangelizing and trying to convert somebody, the mentality, 99.9% of the way across the board for all of Christianity is even when you're speaking, you're not speaking, right? So you're letting God speak through you. And the idea that you would keep God from speaking by staying silent and not continuing to press in or trying to bring them into the church or the community or Bible study, whatever you're doing, would be you shutting God's mouth. If that makes sense.
Yeah, but I guess that could relate into another topic. It was like, are they trying to tell me or trying to tell other people that we don't have our own free will to think of like what we think, or just like decide for our own selves if we want to be part of the church or not,
Can you rephrase that a little way? I got lost there.
Okay, so I guess what I'm saying is like, do you think that, because you were talking about how, like the idea is that we're not speaking the way of God, and like that God is kind of the one that needs to shine through people, right?
Yes. Yeah.
I feel like when you say it like that, like I know what you're talking about, but like I can also see the other side of it where people are interpreting it as I'm not having any free will in this choice, so they're trying to convert me over to something, and I don't have any other option just because. Like a God just wants me to be part of it,
Got you. Yes. So it's like, like that heaven or hell, like immediacy of it.
So it's like, what's the free will in that? If you're telling me that I should be part of the church because I have no free will, then like, what's the point of me?
So free will throws a whole different curveball into the conversation that I'm not totally qualified to speak on, because there's two different camps of Protestantism in particular. One thinks you have free will, and the other thinks you don't. I've been raised in the kind of group that thinks there is free will, and you kind of act accordingly. Yeah. And literally, I'm going to trip this up, and I apologize to anybody who knows.
It's like a whole study.
Right, exactly. But the idea is that you surrender that free will and allow the Spirit, like God's will over your will, if that makes sense, like letting His will be supreme. And so trying to align your free will with God's will for your life is that perfect intersection of sanctification, where you're made holy. That's a big way of just saying, like you're in the right, like you're good. If your will and God's will are the same thing, then you're good. Yeah. And usually how people identify people who, like where that's not the case, where there's no intersect, is just the blanket statement of sin. So say God's will is, don't commit adultery. And this person's either cheating on their girlfriend or just having premarital sex or doing whatever. Then they kind of point that out to them and saying, hey, you're messing up here in this way, or you're falling short here. Like, well, there's tons of different ways that people actually go about it. And I guess we kind of got off the topic here. I think what you're hitting out more so is this heaven and hell depiction of conversion where like there's such an immediate need for you to embrace Jesus, otherwise then you're just going to hell. Is that kind of what
even just like that the people who try to convert other people try to make it seem like you're hurting the church if you're not like being part of it or you're not contributing in any way.
Right.
Because you're not showing such a dedication that they are.
The self-righteousness in a way.
Yeah, and I feel like it's kind of like egotistical in a way too. Where
Right.
It's just like we're just kind of like, oh, like you don't want to support like the better good.
Got you. They call you selfish. They call you stupid. Yes.
Yeah, and
okay.
I'm just like, no, I don't. I just don't want to be a part of it. Like,
Right.
don't take it personally.
Okay. Now I'm tracking a lot more clearly with you. Yes, I definitely see. I mean, I'm certainly guilty of it as well. Like, definitely very guilty of it. Where you think, okay, I'm not participating in this one certain activity. I think where the lines get drawn a lot of times is just sex, drugs, and rock and roll. Yeah. So what you entertain in terms of your sexuality, what you entertain in terms of just your lifestyle and your partying or lack thereof, people kind of create these pedestals they like to stand upon. And I think in my personal experiences, like the best people, like do their best to completely subvert those pedestals and go beneath. And that's where it comes back to vulnerability. So say I'm going up to somebody who is just, jerking off 6 times a day. Okay. And just that's something that legitimately has control of their life and they can't control whether or not they're jerking off. Okay. And so then I say, look, I've experienced like, not to that extent, but I've experienced what that feels like and just losing control of just your hand and your body and not being literally a slave to pornography or to masturbation, whatever it is, to where you can't function. Like I've experienced that. Okay. And so the best people kind of humble themselves in that way and then say, hey, look, I was here and I'm still kind of going through that. But what's helping me get through that is God and Jesus. Right. If that makes sense. So they completely humble themselves and put themselves in a position where they can empathize with the people they're trying to convert because they understand that they're still in the conversion process. Yeah. And people will probably crucify me using that terminology because it's like, once you're there, you're there. But like understanding that everybody, you still have a way to go.
And I guess that also connects to like the real and fake conversation because like when I see the people who just keep pushing and then they just keep like trying to get you to join the church or they make you feel bad about yourself. They don't feel like real people to me. Like they don't feel like people who like have personal things about themselves or experiences or like they don't feel like relatable. Yeah. And it's kind of hard to like, I don't know, like imagine like someone else being able to be like, oh yeah, I agree with you and I'm going to join the church because you phrased it correctly. Because I feel like the way that you convey your information is very important to like success of anything or just the audience that you're trying to go off of. If you're keep pushing and if you're trying to make people feel bad about not doing them, no one's gonna listen to you. If you're making someone feel bad about themselves, the only thing that they're gonna think is, wow, this guy's being mean to me, there's no point for me to listen to them. Right. As opposed to someone who also had an issue and they're also working through it and they find the solution through going to the church. Right. That's more understandable.
Yes. And so there's a ton of different, like literally a ton of different philosophies. Hello.
Hello. Do you have any desire in food, either of you, hamburgers, hot dogs?
Yes.
I'm probably going to go eat at home after this.
You sure? I mean,
yeah.
What would you like?
Both, please.
Huh?
Both?
Both. A dog and a burger.
Yes.
Right. Thank you for the offer.
So they'll be ready in like 5 or 10 minutes.
Okay.
Does that work?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Sounds good. Thank you for the offer.
You're welcome.
Yeah. Okay. That was a break of the fourth wall.
Fine.
Courtesy of Gregory Forrest McMillan. A27, actually I shouldn't say the address, wow. But whatever. Courtesy of my father. Love him to death. Broke the fourth wall. It's great.
Okay, I guess, getting back to what I was talking about of like, how do you, it kind of relates to the idea of like real versus fake, or just like, what was the question? I completely forgot.
We had that train of thought.
It was,
dang it, I love you.
It was, why do we go back to things that are bad? And right. Of course, it did relate to the idea of real versus fake, but I think the more important idea of why we do things that are bad is because Okay, so the way that people work is that we have two distinctions in our life. I think we have the fun aspect, and then I think we have the productive aspect. And I think another way to interpret that is that we have the things that we do because we just genuinely enjoy them.
Yeah.
And we have the things that we have to do because we have to be productive. There's some people that are on both extremes, right? There are some people that only do the fun things, right?
Yeah.
And they never get any work done. And there's people that are entirely productive, but they don't have any fun.
Okay.
So they're not happy. So on both sides, you can't be happy. The only way that I feel like you can be happy is by being in the exact middle, where you're doing everything that you can to be productive, but you're also having as much fun as you need.
Right.
And I feel like that's like the proper balance to be in, to be able to get away from the like, why am I doing bad things?
Yeah.
Because whatever your definition of a bad thing is, are you on one of the two axioms, or are you more on one side than the other?
Yeah.
Because then it's kind of obvious what you need to do, in my opinion.
Yeah. Well, and the way you described it is very strangely biblical as well, because you have, I think, what you would have on the left side of people who kind of are hedonists in a way, and just completely don't know how to stop having fun, right? And there's certainly a problem with that extreme, but then you have what are called like historically asceticists, who completely are just rule followers, just by the book, don't know how to have any fun, don't condone fun, you know, no toe tapping at all, right? And the people who are able to balance those things are people who understand, you know, in my personal opinion, like what free will is and the consequences of free will, because free will does not mean you now have permission to do everything, you know, morally. It means you have the ability to do literally anything. And so every single thing that you do is a choice to which you are personally responsible and accountable for. Right? And so that means that even the things that people call mundane, or the little things that include getting up out of bed, brushing your teeth, eating food, going to class, things that you need to sustain yourself physically, those are still choices. As much as you beat them into habits, every time you make a decision, it's a little bit easier to make the decision, but you're still consciously making that decision. You know? And so people who can make those decisions and understand that you don't have to do anything, right? And that's been a big wake-up call for me recently, especially with organizations and classes and work and relationships,
living
and
your life in
yes,
general.
trying
you
to
don't
figure
really
out,
have to do anything,
right? Like you could sit at home and do absolutely nothing. Would there be repercussions for that? Yeah, but it's ultimately your choice. And so how you again balance those choices, recognize that everything you do is a choice, because especially when people say, oh, I have to go to class, like I'm not going to say don't go to class, but you don't have to go to class. You don't have to read the textbook. I tend to say, like, I'm going to read the textbook tonight. Like, I'm not ignoring the fact that I'm kind of blowing off this party or this whatever situation I'm doing.
It's just kind of like,
but I'm not going to make it sound like
that. Like that is a good decision for you,
right? And I identify it as a decision rather than an obligation. Because there are very few. Right, there are very few things that I actually obligate myself to besides my word. So when I say I'm going to read my textbook, I'm now obligated to go read it. Right, but again, at any point in that obligation, I can break that and still make that choice and say, I'm not going to read this textbook anymore. I'm not going to do this homework anymore. But from the moment I say I'm going to read my textbook to the moment that textbook is either read or left unread, you know, that is all, you know, subject to choice and free will. You can read the textbook in 20 minutes and read it straight through, or you can watch a bunch of YouTube videos in between, eat some candy, go make some dinner. Like there's, you know, are you kind of catching what I'm saying? Like,
like everything you do is a choice, and you shouldn't interpret it as like I have to do this, because it makes you less likely want to do the thing that you need to do.
Which is very hard when it comes back to the things that we come back to that we, you know are bad for us. And we tend to identify, you know, and addiction is a genuinely real thing. And I don't want to make it sound like you can just roll out of bed and get over depression or addiction. That's not how it works. That's not how habits are done. Right. But understanding that any road to any sort of recovery begins with a choice. You know, I think, you know, whether that's assisted with professional help, with medication, with whatever else is needed that's supplementary, yes, like those things are awesome and they're beneficial. But it also comes down to your choice. You know, I think fundamentally it begins with a choice for you and anybody else who's going through that situation to say, we want to solve what appears to be the problem here. You know, and then understanding that to solve any problem, you have to act and make these decisions. You're not obligated to do anything. You know, even when you semantically say we have to do this, it's like, no, we're going to do this, right? This is what we're going to do. But if we don't, here's what could happen. And you either live with that or you don't. You know?
And I think sometimes it's also healthy to make things like that you don't need to do, like kind of realizing them as things that you have to do. Because like, let's take it as you don't do your homework.
Right.
And it become a habit that you don't do your homework. And you really need to start doing your homework, otherwise you'll fail the class. And you realize that you need to fail the class, but you don't think of it as a priority. I think changing the mindset of like, I want to do my homework now, or I'm going to do my homework now, to more so, I have to do my homework because otherwise I'm going to freaking lose it. I'm going to fail, or I won't get the job, or I won't get the work, and I won't get the grade that I need. You know, you kind of have to have a priority. So it's like a balance of the two.
Right. Well, there's value in the rhetoric, I think, is what you're getting at. When you say I have to do this, you're identifying to everyone around you because you're telling somebody, okay, or yourself, I have to do this. Right. There's value in, because that's how I view the obligation. Is, you know, however you say it, you say, okay, I've got to do this, or I'm going to do this. Right. You're holding yourself accountable to that statement, saying whatever I've set, you know, my mind to, that's what I'm going to do. Right. And so you have the system where you are now responsible and accountable for something. If that's brushing your teeth, it's brushing your teeth. If that's making your bed, it's making your bed. If that's doing a 10-page term paper, that's due in 2 weeks. That's doing the 10-page term paper that's due in 2 weeks. Right. But again, it comes back to a personal choice, you know, a choice that is based off the concept of free will. You know, you have the ability to make a decision. And I think where, you know, to bring it back, and I don't mean to just completely circle back around to church people, because we get this wrong a couple of times as well. When we start to assume, again, that choices are easy, right? There are choices that are incredibly, incredibly difficult, and in or outside of the church, especially with relationships, when it comes to breaking it off with somebody, when it comes to, you know, just stopping a particular behavior, when it comes to breaking any habit or forming any habit, really, doing something that's particularly costly or hard that requires sacrifice and work, and you understand that sacrifice and the cost and you count that cost, that's a hard choice to make, but it's still a choice. And it's still something that, you know, unless there is just some radical physical impediment to you, and you are a vegetable and just have no free will left and no autonomy left, you can go out and do something. I believe, you know, that's not pretending like it's easy, but just that it's possible. Start with possible and then move from there.
Like when I was at Macy's earlier today and I was dropping off boxes that I needed returned from my mom, I could have just left La Cantera and I could have just done what I needed to do and go home, or like go here and meet up with Cody. I decided, I was just like, okay, you know what, I got some time. Why don't I just have fun at La Cantera? Why don't I just enjoy the day and do what I want to do? So what I did is I went to the marble slab and I got a chocolate shake.
Yeah, you did.
And I was just like, I don't need this, but I want it. And I just want to enjoy it. And it's not like I need it. It's not going to help me in any way, but like, this is just something that I was like, I'm going to make a decision right now that I want to do it. And I did it, and I went around La Cantera, and I took a picture next to a waterfall, and I just walked around, and I saw the many people, which I think it's fun, just looking at so many people, and realizing like how your perspective of your life is so constricted, narrowed, and just like, it feels like such a massive deal. And then when you look at the rest of the world and everybody's living their life and they're all having their own experiences, that it makes you actually think that maybe sometimes your problems are kind of like inflated bigger than they actually are.
Well, and I think there's certain utility, and I understand what you're getting at in terms of perspective and realizing, I think that's just humility. Again, understanding that you play a very small part and that your problems are not the only problems that are out there. But I think your problems, as long as they're, you know, tied to you and you're a person, then they mean something, right? It's not as if your problems are meaningless, right? And I think there's a danger in comparing your situation again to other people's situations, what we were talking about earlier.
But I think I think of it more of like a humbling way. Like, you look at your situation and you might inflate it to the biggest thing in the world,
Yeah.
where you feel like you have the biggest problem in the world and nobody can understand you.
Yeah.
And then you go and walk into a mall, or you go to school, or you go anywhere else, and then you see the plethora of people in the world. And you realize that every single one of them has their own issues too. And that maybe, because everyone has their own issues too, maybe your issue's not as bad as you think it is.
Right. Well, and even if it is as bad as you think it is, the fact
Yeah.
that you're all still out there, you know, and that you're still living,
Yeah.
you know, and you're still going through life, maybe not together if they're just a bunch of strangers in lock and terror, but you're still all, you know, present and existing here on the earth is a strange way of saying, oh, there's just something bigger than me.
Yeah.
Bigger than me, bigger than my problems, bigger than anything that I can imagine.
Yeah.
And the existence of something bigger than yourself, you know, people find that in community or in purpose. If you you know, have a business or an organization that you love, and just being a part of something bigger, you know, that brings everything back into perspective. That humbles you, but also makes you feel like you are a part of something.
Yeah.
You know, it's really good.
Yeah. And I think we just have like one major topic to go over.
Heck
It's
yeah.
kind of like our last topic.
Last topic of the day.
And the topic is, what do you think about religion?
What do I think about religion?
Yeah. And I'll answer the question too.
Heck yeah.
So I guess I'll go first.
Yeah.
So my view of religion, because I'm not very religious as a person, but like I respect its ideals. I think of religion just solely, if I were to put a blanket statement on it, I think of religion as a way of giving people hope for their life. And that might sound dumb, but I think of it more so as if someone's like in a slump where they have no idea what they're supposed to do, and maybe they, I guess, keep getting into the bad habits,
Right.
or they're not sure about where they should head in their life, I think religion's a good idea to get them back on track. You know, get them back on the train of like, you can do these things, like you can do these things to like fix your addictions or fix your bad habits. Right. You could, you know, make a discipline of like going to church, or like becoming in a community of other people who are also religious. And I think it's just a good idea of like giving people something to fall back on if they don't know what's going on, or they feel like things are going to shit, basically. You know?
Yeah.
And I guess that's like my view on religion.
And I think that is the heart behind. So religion is kind of more blanketed.
Yeah.
And I guess Christians do, because I'm Christian, as you know, try to do a big, I don't know, they try to distinguish themselves and set themselves apart from what they considered, you know, just either non-Abrahamic religions or just religions that are not Christianity. And even within Christianity, there's all this stuff.
Yeah.
And I think it's interesting how even within the church, the word religion is demonized.
Yeah.
Because how church speak coins the word religion is exactly what we were talking about earlier, with people who are down each other's throats and egotistical and on podiums and doing everything just for the sake of, you know, asceticism and following all of the rules, but not exactly knowing why, not being relatable, not being, you know, in touch with anybody, not understanding relationship, but just understanding there's this checklist that I have to do. And so a big distinction that Christianity makes is that or tries to make rather, is that it's less of religion and more of relationship. Right. And so that's how it's been coined or just expressed to me as I've grown up in the church, is that it's not a religion and something that like you're checking off the chores on your refrigerator, but it's a relationship, especially when you think about like the two-pronged attack of like reading the Bible and praying, right? Those are the two religious acts that people always kind of reference as, you know, your base. If you do this, then you're a good Christian boy or girl, right? But people often think of reading the Bible as God is speaking to you, and you think of prayer as you're speaking to God. And so it's this conversation, this dialogue between you and God, between you and Jesus or the Spirit, you know, da-da-da-da-da. And so it is rhetorical in some sense, but it's very, very helpful, I think, just even if it is simply rhetoric, to say, look, this is not what we're about. We're not in the business of just trying to fix people.
Yeah.
We're in the business of trying to connect people, not only with one another and having this personal, physical community and sense of accountability, but the sense of accountability and relationship with, you know, who you believe to be God.
Yeah.
And so I
guess that does answer the question a bit, but I guess I mean, so in terms of religion as a whole,
Right.
rather than just Christianity.
As in the utility of religion?
Utility, or just like, what do you think about it? Like, what is it to you?
I think the more it becomes centered around people, the less accurate it becomes, generally speaking, right? The more we take God and turn him into us and whatever we want him to be, or whatever you want religion to be. If religion becomes about people and people-centered, then you lose that humility, you lose that connect. I mean, so I'll rephrase that. If it becomes self-centered, because it generally is people-centered if it's about relationships and about community, but if it becomes incredibly self-centered and it's all about, man, what can I get from this religion, then that's kind of self-defeating, because it doesn't take care of the things that it's meant to take care of. Because a lot of the utility, just kind of objectively speaking about religion, is that it creates humility, or theoretically desires humility. And if you take that religion, if you take God and make him something that is inherently about you, then you've destroyed the utility of that entire worldview, right? You've completely flipped it on its head, which is why, I mean, again, in theory, like Christianity takes, and I think just about every religion takes a huge dump on pride and selfishness. And every, sin or thing that you do wrong is traced back to some kind of moment in time where you're thinking about yourself more than others, about more than your friends or your family, or about, God and what he thinks of the world and how it should be. And so I think, definitely, and it is a semantic thing, because I'm bringing it back to religion in general. I
mean, it is a religion question.
Yeah. It's hard to pinpoint it, because I don't want to label or name call, because everybody, again, is guilty of it. But just generally speaking, when we make it about ourselves, when we try to, as an extension of making it about ourselves, is kind of where that imposition of our values above everything else comes into play, right? Because you're saying, in a lot of cases, my God is better than your God, or my way of perceiving who we both claim to be God is better than your way of perceiving who we both claim to be God. And so when you make it all about your ideas or your interpretation or your, just knowledge winning over somebody else, then it inherently, you can see how it becomes competitive and how it becomes this kind of political game where you're just, duking it out and battling for egotistical reasons.
And that shouldn't be the point of religion.
Right. It's completely counterintuitive. You can see where, when it's done well, I think, again, is humanitarian. It's philanthropic. It's going out and not just bringing people in to give money, but literally giving to the people who need money, and kind of flipping the script on what we would call, the depravity of human nature, and that we're pretty inherently selfish. However basically good we think we are, it's like we've got areas of our life where we just make the wrong decisions. And the system of religion is about trying to not only correct that, but do so in a way that takes the nature of selfishness and flips it. It's not just about changing the action, it's about changing the heart behind the action, if that makes sense.
I think calling it selfishness, though, is kind of like the wrong term. I think it's more so it's like caring about yourself. I think people, when you care about yourself too much, you end up on the selfishness side, right? That makes sense. But if you just care about yourself in that, like, you do value things that you do. Like, I do, like, I like to draw. Right. And, like, I wouldn't want, like, a religion to take that away from me, you know? And I don't think that's selfish to say. I think that's just, I like that. I care about that. That's part of what I enjoy. And I guess it might be different for, like, different people in different scenarios, like, because someone might enjoy, like, sleeping with a bunch of people, right? Right. And I think a lot of people wouldn't. In terms of religion, that's not exactly, like, what they follow, right? But I guess it's different from a hobby, right? Yeah.
And so, because a lot of it just comes down to whatever's written in the book, and that sounds like a just weird way of putting things, but that's kind of how it is. And people... when they talk about, like, strict and loose interpretations of the Constitution, for example, if they're just straight up by the book, or if they kind of go beyond, it's kind of always
the same thing with the Bible, right?
It's exactly the same thing. So not only with translation, because there's a couple of different translations and people argue over which is the most accurate. So just from the get-go, there's disagreement about what it actually says. And beyond what it actually says, there's disagreement certainly about what it means when it says, for example, in Leviticus 18, where it's talking about if a man lays with another man, then he is committed an abomination and he deserves to be put to death. Right? There's people who have a very strict interpretation of that and have taken that to monstrous proportions and put, gay people to death or like lynch people.
Right.
That's awful. And there are people who have completely stretched that passage and said, well, that's in the first half of the book. And now that Jesus has come in the second half of the book, then the first half of the book is irrelevant or null and void.
Yeah.
And so it's a battle over the book, if that makes sense, within the church. And then also kind of outside of it, because again, you're thinking about relevancy in particular, like this, even the New Testament with Jesus is 2,000 years old at the earliest dates. And so people are like, we live in 2019.
Yeah.
What is this book and this tradition and all of this, stories and myth doing here with us when we should be focusing on feeding the hungry or stopping war or avoiding a nuclear catastrophe, right? It seems like we're out of priorities, to phrase it in ways that you've talked about earlier.
So how does religion exactly update?
Hello. Thank you. Another break of the fourth wall.
Yeah. I guess my question was just like, how does religion exactly update? Like, why is it that they're adopting the more modern ideals?
So
is it just to bring people in, or is it because they do think that it needs to become?
It's both.
It needs to change.
It's both. So I think what you're talking about is Reformation. And so you're familiar with at least the Protestant Reformation, right? So you had the Catholic Church, and that was originally the only thing, and then it kind of broke off to the Catholic and Protestants, and then the Protestants just kind of continued to trickle out into different beliefs. Within the past 100 years or so, and again, I'm not an expert on the history, but it's just been, imagine a spider's web continuing to get bigger and bigger and bigger in terms of people having increasingly different beliefs, right? Yeah. Or just even different names for the same beliefs. Yeah. In my personal opinion, a lot of people say they believe different things, you know, or try to differentiate just by the rhetoric and the semantics, which, they think is helpful for a bunch of reasons. Won't go into any specific details, but basically everyone's trying to market Jesus.
Which is kind of not I don't think that's the right way to go about it.
Right. And so it's, it's incredibly difficult because it's always about, you have this idea of the truth, which you believe is in the book, is in the Bible. And it's, again, what is it? And then how do you communicate what it is once you know what it is? And so, at both of those points, both what it is and how you communicate it, people diverge from one another. Yeah. So there are people who believe, a lot of people honestly, who believe the same thing about who Jesus is, right? But they just have incredibly different ways of going about ministry and actually like growing churches or running churches or preaching, teaching, literally the way you say things or how you treat, again, like sin, how you approach people on the street or don't approach people on the street, and there's people who have radically strong opinions on both sides of the spectrum.
Yeah, and it's not even like a religion thing. Like a lot of people just have a different opinion on just like that, but like taking out the religion aspect of it. Like if I were to say hi to like you and I didn't know you on campus, right? And we were just like random friends or just random people. Some people could interpret that as that's weird. Like why would you say hi to someone randomly? Like it doesn't make any sense. Yeah. And other people would interpret it as I'm just meeting someone new. I'm just making a new friend. That's it. Yeah. I'm not taking it personally or anything. That's just what it is. And so
you have all of these extraneous factors of just socialization, you know, and especially, if it's in a public setting, you know, you're open to public scrutiny for whatever you do. And especially now that just about everything is public thanks to social media and everybody can and does have an opinion. They can put each other on freaking blast, bro. The communities that started off kind of in hopes to have, conversation and discussion, a lot of times disintegrate into arguments and just shouting, which, again, completely counterintuitive to what the mission of religion and especially the mission of Christianity was supposed to be or designed to be.
Yeah. So bringing people together.
Yeah, exactly. And so if we want to bring it back to religion as just an institution, I do think personally, just like historically, that it has done a lot of harm. Like it's certainly done a lot of harm. And I'm not going to dismiss the harm it's done, but I think it's done, again, the best job of changing hearts rather than actions, if that makes sense. Because you can write down laws, and we do have laws written down on the books and the, you know, not in the Constitution, but just in general, like the United States Code of Law, if that's the thing. Don't kill anybody, right? Don't steal. Don't, you know, I guess smoke pot in some states, right? You have that legally written down. But does writing it down deter people from actually doing it? Maybe, right? But ultimately, no. And I think people who get invested enough into the institution when it's done well, the institution does the best job of actually helping people not just course correct and stop behaviors, but genuinely change their heart and make them into better versions of themselves.
Yeah, I don't even think that it's the fact that it's written down. I think it's just the fact that, like, if they believe a certain belief that's, like, in the Bible, right?
Yeah.
I think it's more so that they just resonate with that belief so much more than other people would resonate with it. And so if they have a discussion where it's like, oh, you shouldn't do this because it's in the Bible, it's not because it's in the Bible that it's an issue. It's because they just strongly believe in that.
Yeah, and I think, I mean, culturally, the Bible is a weapon.
Yeah.
In terms of just, I mean, honestly, like, whether or not you like it or whether or not anyone likes it, it kind of is just culturally a building block of Western civilization. Yeah. And so it's still normative. Yeah. You know, and the founding fathers, even when some of them were atheists, is like, you kind of had the principles at least established nominally from Scripture, the Ten Commandments, whatever it was, the ideas of justice and freedom and peace and prosperity, like all of that's remotely or nominally at least biblical. And so when you bring that into 3 centuries later, in a country that's still 75% nominally Christian, at least by name, you know, it's very hard for, I guess, just the weaponization of the Bible to not happen. You know, it's very hard for people to, when it is so normative, understand how much of, again, it's a decision. It's your belief is a decision, right? And I think that's a big thing for me as well, and it would take forever for me to explain it. But basically, like, some people think, oh, your beliefs are a product of just how you're raised or of where you grew up or something.
Which could be partially true, right?
Which is partially true, because if you're never exposed to something, it's kind of hard for you to just artificially or just completely internally bring that into existence, right? So it's what you're exposed to, certainly.
But I do think there is an aspect of it where it's just like something that...
where you choose to accept or reject it.
You choose to, but like it might be something that's just so much ingrained in your DNA that you just can't imagine it another way. Like if you were raised in an environment where like you had your parents fighting, right? Like regardless of like what the issue might be, like maybe it's just something so ingrained in your personality of like, I guess, why you believe a certain way, or you would follow some belief that either one of your parents had, that like you just can't describe. And I think that also, I guess, ties in with like a lot of disagreements about like that happened in religion, like if homosexuality is like acceptable or not. I think it's just something that's so much ingrained in someone's internal like growth, like in just their DNA,
when
that
you
it's
spread
something
that,
that's like not, you cannot like argue about it, I feel. Because okay, you were grown up just as like I don't know, just a generic white boy, right? Right? Okay, so I think you just growing up like that, you didn't grow up as like someone else. Like you didn't grow up as like a dark-skinned girl. So you don't have that life experience, right? And you were growing up straight too, right? So you don't know what it's like to grow up something else. As opposed to like if you can imagine someone else growing up in a world where they don't have the same thinking that you do.
Yeah.
And regardless if it's a different way of thinking, it doesn't make their way of thinking wrong.
Right. And the difference in of itself, right? The difference isn't whatever, like, because something believes something different than what I believe is not inherently what makes it wrong. It can still be wrong, right? Because there are people who think murder's a great idea, right?
Right, but I
So
think
it's not that they
I think
think
it's
something
something
different
more
than
so when it's something that doesn't affect
There's
the
a-
life of other people.
Right, there's a deeper objective truth, I think,
Yeah.
is what you're hitting at.
Yeah.
And it's more than just what I believe is
Yeah.
objective truth inherently because I believe it, right? And where religion tends to go with that is straight back again to the book.
Yeah.
You know, because it's in the Bible is legit the biblical argument. Therefore, it's true. You know, because God said so, thus it is. You know, because
Yeah.
you can't fight the word of God.
Yeah.
And so I think culturally and socially, you're absolutely right, where there's so much that, I mean, I'll never experience,
Yeah.
you know, that I have never experienced in terms of
Because
being.
I think some of
right.
it you just can't. Like,
Yes.
it's just not part of you.
And I think I've tried to do a much better job of understanding just what my standpoint is and how, again, like my development has influenced my line of thought. But I think I will claim this, my line of thought at the end of the day is ultimately my own because I've had the privilege of being exposed to a bunch of different things. And as stubborn as I know I am, and as, you know, as much as I've developed in a certain way, I will hold that my thoughts are independent of anybody's actions on me.
Yeah.
You know, at the end of the day, I understand having been exposed to something, right? I've been exposed to different thoughts and philosophies and worldviews, and I just don't agree.
Yeah.
You know, that's not because I'm not open. It's just I've looked through them and I've been like, nope. Like, just
Yeah.
I don't see it there, right?
Yeah.
And so you're absolutely right in that it can't just be this stubborn defiance of anything that I wasn't raised in. And there's certainly so much value in understanding what other people believe in, right? And you got to claim at the end of the day, your choice is your choice, right? Your faith is your faith. Your relationships are your relationships. They're not anybody else's. They're not your parents. They're not, you know, your teachers or your pastors. If you go to church, it's not their relationship. It's your relationship. So,
Yeah. And I think that's about all it.
yeah.
I think we answered like all the questions and
yeah.
we just went through everything.
We did go through everything. We did it, bro.
We did it.
We're super impressed.
Yeah. But I think it's time for us to get dinner.
Eat dinner. All right.
And have a good day, basically.
Have a good evening.
Literally just do the rest of what we need to do.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, thanks everybody for tuning in. It means a lot that you're here. See you later.
Thank you for having me, Cody.
Thanks for coming on, Rishy. You're the
problem.
best.